Today, this podcast is going to be spotlighting a very special guest. He is an interfaith ordained reverend, a root worker, and a conjure man in the South. He is known as Papa Shadow. And I'm very pleased and honored to have Papa Shadow in the house of From the Ashes Publishing. And he doesn't really offer his work very often. He doesn't do very many interviews. So it's very special to have him present within the house and also doing this interview. So hello, this guy Creasy is actually his name here. So Guy Creasy, hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent. So you have a tremendous past working with magic, a whole history that is rather in depth, actually. Can you go into that and kind of let us know where you come from?
Right. When I'm asked, where did it all begin? Where did it all begin with you? I always start off by saying, January 27th, 1977, from birth. In my bloodline, it's always been, we've all had different abilities, in different parts of my family and ancestry. And I came into recognition of what I was able to do around 7 or 8 years old, when I was bullied quite a lot in school. And I remembered, I was always compelled to the occult, turn to the occult some kind of way, buying a book here or there. And I remember doing a particular rite that I hand wrote. It was nothing out of a book. I did this out of my own words, which I always found is nowadays is the most powerful. And I did this against a bully who didn't show up to school the next day. And that kind of hit me pretty hard that, be careful what you wish for. There's powers in the word. And I also started off a bit in the early days with weather manipulation, weather magic. I remember making it rain one time for, I think, about 7 days. And my dad was always kind of the Darren Stevens of the family. And my mom would always kind of give me the look like, yep, I know what you did.
Right.
Yeah, I think with me, it started off, with traditional old school witchcraft, and then progressed into which kind of paralleled, I would say, in America when you're dealing with what we call American witchcraft or traditional witchcraft. I think it's got a lot of fusion with Vodun and voodoo, especially. It all fused together. And then later on, I got into necromancy after some people in my family passed that were very close to me, that I was refusing to, shall we say, let go. So.
Right. Excellent. You have offered several rites for the public to choose from.
Yep.
Through the house, which are very, very potent. The first of these rites that I'm seeing here is the Jezebel root hex ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, again, this again deals with the root work that you're involved with, or that you have a history with. What goes into this particular rite?
The Jezebel root one. I have many personal favorites, but this is one of them. Basically, with this one, it's very universal in the respect that you can pretty much summon any Loa or any spirit you want. I particularly choose Baron Limba because of his ferocity, and he's an untamed force to unleash that gets the job done. Basically, you hold it in your left hand, and if done correctly by the practitioner, he is summoned to the left of you. You then basically proclaim what you want to have done, name the target. It is then placed into a classic mason jar with warm water, and then placed away in a dark space for 3 days. Within the 3 days, Limba will seek out and find that target.
Right.
After the 3 days, you must get rid of that jar far, far away from your dwelling, because after he's done with the target, he comes for you.
Right.
which is one of those.
Not to trifle with, and so he's attached to this particular jar.
Yes.
With the target.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, that's definitely something that's very powerful. Now you had said that this was a New Orleans spirit.
This is a New Orleans spirit. Yeah, he is known as a Loa that dwells within. They describe as dwells within the rocks. They say he has an insatiable appetite, and as I said, he's hard to control. Even the most adept of magicians or sorcerers would have a hard time. It's almost. I think one time we had a conversation. He's pretty much like dealing with the jinn.
Right.
You can ask nicely if he will help you, and 9 times out of 10 he will if approached properly. But he's definitely a force. I wouldn't just let any old beginner try with him. That's why I typically like to work with him myself.
That's understandable. Yeah. No, it's that you had said that there's a very strong tension between the magician and that spirit. And that did remind me of the jinn, actually. So, yeah, kind of like walking on eggshells, as I've said. Yeah, very, very, very powerful spirits, very deadly spirits in their own right.
Yes.
Definitely will remove obstacles from one's path in that way, is my understanding.
Yes. I like to describe, another way I like to describe certain spirits. It's kind of like when you're dealing with owning a Doberman Pinscher. They say for years, and other animals too, like the case with Siegfried and Roy and the tigers. I mean, for years, you work with these animals, these creatures, and in 1 second, they can turn. Right. And that's the thing to understand with a lot of these spirits is that you don't control them. You work alongside them.
And that's interesting that you say that, because control isn't often something that is involved with a lot of spirits. I hear people say a lot, oh, I use this spirit, I use that spirit, I use, to get this and that. Well, you don't use any spirit.
Right. Yes.
You work with them to accomplish a goal, but you never use any kind of spirit. When someone says that, it's very disrespectful to me. And they haven't really understood the true dynamics of ceremonial magic or conjure work when dealing with interdimensional kind of otherworldly beings, because they definitely need that kind of respect to get the results that you're looking for. And I think, again, there's a lot of that now, at this age of like instant gratification, that people are just wanting to push a button and get what they want, and they're leaving out a lot of this kind of steps of respect. And I think that's something that is starting to become less and less.
And another thing that I always touch on too, and I mention a lot of times in my postings, is and I think it applies to a lot of practices, is the acting in accordance. A lot of times when we practitioners do something for a client or whatnot, they want that instant gratification, but they're not willing to meet halfway. In other words, if I'm doing a fast luck, quick cash rite, for example, that I offer. I had a gentleman one time who had already put applications out for a job. Momentarily after I did that rite, his phone rang off and he got 5 job offers in that same moment. So that's the point of what I'm saying, is that you give a little, the magician gives a little, and it meets in the middle.
Well, that's how I see pacts. That's how I perform pacts with clients, is that, they have to understand that when you're packing, you're not going to be able to just sit on the couch and expect the spirit to do all
that. Yeah, exactly.
That you were pacting, and I actually plan on doing a podcast about this, but you're actually pacting on to do all you can on the physical, while they're doing all they can on the spiritual.
Exactly. Exactly.
And a lot of people just expect to do nothing and get the result.
Exactly. You know, it's just like in mundane life, you know, you have to put a little effort out there. And like I said, with conjure, magic, root work, it's that added boost on the causal plane, right? That gives you that.
It's also right. It's also interesting you had brought up. He had already put out applications, and then you had performed the rite. One could argue, well, that he was already going to get the call, that was already going to happen. And I use this example a lot, but it's one of the greatest I've ever come across, dealing with the timeline of how magic works or how spirits work in timelines. There's a magician who wanted to hear from an old friend, and he performs a rite to get contact with that friend. The next day, a letter appears from that friend. Now, had he done the rite, would the letter have appeared? It's hard to say, but the letter would have had to have been written days beforehand. So it's kind of the which came first, chicken or the egg kind of situation. A lot of people will go to do a pact or go to do a ritual and get the results beforehand, and then not want to go through with the rite. And I always advise against that, to go through with that rite anyway and complete that circle, complete that kind of link, if you will. So magic is very interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, and what I also, to add to that, I look at it like there are certain things that are already in motion, within the current, however you want to look at it, within life. And certain rites are basically like a fast forward button on a remote. We're pushing it. We're giving it that extra push, to the end result. And then sometimes some of our rights are working against the grains, having to, actually alter and change the course of a reality. And that's a little more challenging. But if something, I guess, is meant to be, shall we say, in a course, then it makes our job that much easier, for sure.
Yeah, indeed. That's definitely true, for sure. So you had brought up the quick cash fast luck ritual that you're offering. What is that? What goes into that? What results can?
That's a unique. That's pretty much what I call like a 2-for-1 or a double hitter. It's a road opener. It opens up opportunity. As I said, in cases of where, in that one example where, somebody's looking for a job, looking for, a relationship. I mean, there's so many different, avenues we can go with this, as far as, it just opens up doors, removes the obstacles, provides opportunity. It also, I've had examples with it where I've done the rites and I have seen tremendous results from it, even just personally using it. I know one time doing a garage sale, which honestly, you don't really make that much money at little piddly garage sales. But I did a combination of fast cash incense and fast cash candle working. And I would say in less than an hour, like $800. That's pretty intense for, a little piddly garage thing. So, I mean, yeah. So, like I said, it's, and results vary. I mean, me doing that and someone else, a novice trying that may not get that powerful a result, but they certainly will get, an opportunity, as I think I described. You may not get cash fall from the sky, but you will maybe get a job offer or an opportunity or be put on the right path, as I say, to where you will make money.
Right.
So that's the important thing I try to stress to make it, make more sense to a client. Because if you don't explain it in those terms, they'll be looking up in the sky for the heavens to open and, and cash to fall, per se.
I mean, I've had people ask me, so when I wake up tomorrow, is there going to be, gold in my front room? And they were quite serious.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And, you have to kind of explain, that's not really how this works. It's, it's a lot more involved than that. So, yeah. And exactly, it's not necessarily, stumbling over a suitcase of $100,000 inside of it. which can happen. But it is also like opening up roads, as you're saying, or opportunities for this kind of.
Exactly. And I mean, I've worked with this personally in the past, and I've walked through a parking lot into a store, and on my way in, just saying to myself, I wish I could, I wish I just had a little bit more money, to buy maybe some extra gifts or something for a holiday or whatnot. And I've had money blow right past by my feet, which is, like I said, that's the kind of thing, that you can get from an opportunity like this.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty surreal. But I mean, like I said, welcome to my world where all kind of, things that people might find, hard to believe are a reality, very much so in my world.
Well, that's the idea of magic. Where it lies is what you believe in, what you allowed to exist within your reality, and how to make that a reality that can be verified by others as well, not just yourself. An actual concrete manifestation of your will within the physical from the spiritual realm.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing these kinds of things, anybody can say, "Oh, it's just coincidence, it's coincidence." But when you see enough coincidences line up, you start to see.
It's a little hard to debunk it at that point. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So that's great. So you're offering the Jezebel root hex ritual. You've got the quick cash fast luck ritual, and then kind of more into the darker realms a little bit here. We're offering 2 different rites under what do you call the shadow hex rituals?
Yes, I title them those ways, by those titles, mainly because in the voodoo traditions is the belief that a person's soul is also known as the shadow. It's a shadow twin image of a person that can be attacked or crossed or hexed, if you will. And because as I was coming through, I guess the ranks in my studies with root work and voodoo in the American voodoo system, I worked a lot with shadow work. I was always doing mummy this and black musk that, and every time I'd walk into a botanica that I would frequent, there were all the well-known practitioners and hoodoo workers and voodoo workers that were in my my neck of the woods. And the beauty is that a lot of people think it has to be in the French quarters. No, they're all over the South. There are root workers and voodoo workers and whatnot. And I got the title as Papa Shadow for that very reason, because I work so heavily with that type of rites. With these ones, I know one deals with the mummy oil hex, where you're literally, it's more of a binding, as well as it also slowly does attack the target.
Right.
So what I would say that would benefit someone is if you're a business owner, you got someone slandering your name, your business, trying to bring you down, that kind of thing, you can put a stop to that real quick with a mummy oil. If you've got people that think are going to cause you physical harm, it not only works against verbal slander, it also will stop people from physically causing you harm. It just puts some dead stop in their tracks.
Right.
And as long as you keep them, sealed up in a bottle per se, untouched, that's it. They will never come harm you. But like I said, what it does is, when you think of it's a good title, the mummy oil hex, because you think of something rotting and over time.
Right.
Although it is sort of a paradox, because a mummy is well preserved when you think about it. But in either case, it slowly pulls that person's life apart over time. Financially, they can't hold a job. Relationship-wise, they can't hold down a marriage. They can't hold down a relationship. Their health will start to dwindle. It's basically just one big downward spiral for that person, and they'll never come back to mess with you again. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. And then there is another one as well.
The other one, that one deals with black arts. You can use several types. I think black musk is a well-known one I've used in the past. It's very hard to come by. It's very rare. In fact, I think most people that do make it will carry that secret to the grave with them. They'll never share that recipe. But Black Arts is a great oil I use because it's a good neutral go-to. If you don't have any other baneful oil to use, Black Arts is the go-to. I mean, you can raise spirits with it, make pacts with it, hex with it. Basically, with that one, you're writing the person's name down 13 times, and you're hitting it with either the Black Arts or some sort. You can even add a little bit of baneful powder to it. Sometimes I'll add revenge powder to it. I'll add wall water or swamp water to it, something of that nature. And then at midnight, you open up a window, you light it on fire. When the ashes cool, you cast it to the wind. And what you're doing is you're basically drawing in dark primal forces that will literally seek and find your target.
It's a very, very, very powerful old form of sorcery that, yes. I mean, this goes back, I mean, from New Orleans, I mean, we're talking about going back to Africa itself, where this kind of magic, if you will, sorcery originated from.
Yes.
And this goes back into your bloodline, into your history.
Yes, where it all. Like I said, and the thing too is once it hit the port of New Orleans, when the Haitians came over, it was pure for a bit, but just like most things, once it hits, the American soil, it gets fused with so much that's already there. You've got the European sorcery, you've got shamanism, you've got, elements of necromancy there, traditional witchcraft, it all comes together in what I've been, I've heard it said best. It's one big funky gumbo. Where you don't really recognize what's pure anymore, but it's an effective system. And you really can't say, you'll have so many folks that will say, this path isn't right because you're not doing it like this, or that path isn't right. It's what resonates with you, and if it works for you. Like when we get into hoodoo, for example, some kept the traditional Haitian loa, some work with the Catholic saints. Some use, like I think you mentioned the other day, with the 6th and 7th book of Moses. Some will work with the Bible as a sorcery book. It's all in what you believe in, especially when you get into the Appalachian and the Pennsylvania type of root work. It's a lot different than say in New Orleans. That's for sure.
And it's interesting you'd mentioned some of those titles. I know like another is La Dragon Rouge is one that I know is worked with a lot in connection with voodoo or voodoo as well. So like you said, it is interesting how these systems combine and create a unique system of their own. Oh
yes, and like I said, that's what makes the American voodoo system. It's so unique because, like I said, it's a fusion of so many different things, and it can be different from one practitioner to the other. And it's definitely a lot more streamlined in some ways. It all depends on really what path you want to seek. I've heard some people say if you seek, I heard it best put, if you seek priesthood, seek out an ungan. Seek out a mambo if you want to go that route, if you want to go the traditional route per se. If you seek power, seek the path of a bokor. And that's more of the direct with the loa. And the initiations are a lot different than the initiation, of course, that you would go through, if you follow the apprenticeship of an ungan. And that, of course, that opens up a debate. We could debate and talk on that for hours another day, because there's so many different traditionalists that are against, people backdoor initiating and that kind of thing. But as I always say, the Loa ultimately choose who they want to work with and who they do not. So it really boils down to the Loa. So when a person is initiated directly through, the Loa, as opposed to having an intermediary like an Ungan or Mambo, it's really, they kind of need to take it up with the Loa, as I always say, which is
right.
Yeah. It's one of those touchy subjects.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of it seems a little bit elitist from what I've seen. It's very protected. It's very this particular course of magic. It's very traditional. Everybody wants to make sure that you have the correct lineage to be able to pass on these secrets or pass on these kinds of workings to anybody else, or to even offer them is somewhat controversial.
Yes.
So
it's definitely a lot of well-kept secrecy with it. And I mean, even a lot of the things that I shared, within, the Brotherhood of Qayin and whatnot, I've caught, which I'm sure you've seen comments, I've caught so much slack from, sharing a lot of that stuff. But, the thing is when we set up these groups for serious practitioners, I approach it that, it's going to benefit someone who follows a similar path that is of a mature, mindset, because certainly someone who doesn't know what they're doing with that system should never approach it, or any system for that matter. If you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't approach it. So. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I believe that 100%. And that's almost the same thing with like incantations. I'm jumping subjects slightly, but it's like, it's been said, don't say anything you don't know what you're saying. If you don't understand what you're reading or what you're supposed to be saying, don't be saying that you're not aware of. You have no idea.
Exactly.
You have no idea what you're getting into. So.
I've seen people pick up a book and start reading a Latin phrase, and I'm like, do you even know what you just read?
Right.
There was an old one that it started off. I'm trying to think. Oh gosh, how does it go? It's basically was the Latin phrase for to receive a kiss of death, and rentum osculum tormentum, which is to receive a kiss of death. Mm. And this guy was just saying this over and over and over again, and I'm like, do you even know what you just said? And he's like, no, it just sounded cool. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing you're not really adept in magic, because and even if you don't really know what you're doing, sometimes it has enough spark there. Even the tiniest spark can light a forest fire, right? So that's the way I like to look at it. Just be careful what you say. I agree with you 100% on that one.
So, I mean, this kind of tradition that you carry on, as you say, it's in the blood. It is traditional. It is something that comes down from a lineage. You've been working this for many years now. Been within the occult communities, doing seminars and different sessions where you're teaching different techniques. So this is nothing new to you. This is something that you have done for a long time now. But the last few years, you've just kind of gone into seclusion, and I'm honored tremendously that you've come out and joined the house.
It's an honor to be here. Like I said, to be amongst, be working with you. First off, that's an honor in itself. But all the other team members that we have in our house, it's truly an honor to work alongside, each and every one of them.
There's a lot going on right now in mainstream magic, and I really want the house to be seen as a very serious house.
Yes.
Adults are working in this house, and they are very serious at what they do. The magic is very strong, very real, very traditional in its own right. For each and every one of us, what we bring to the table. And so I'm honored to have you on board again as one of the members that are bringing such powerful, serious rites to the table. Right now, you are only taking on one client a week, just because your schedule is so limited with what you do.
Right.
I highly advise anybody who is looking to book Guy to definitely do it as soon as you can, because you don't know how busy his he get backed up in his schedule as far as reservations go.
Oh yeah.
Definitely check him out. And of course, you can always book any of these rituals that we talked about today or that he discussed today at FromTheAshesPublishing.com. And as he had said, there's several of us now offering rights. So there's quite a selection to choose from. We're very pleased to be doing this again and bringing forth a very serious, practical service to clients or to people to offer these kinds of things.
Oh, for certain. And like I said, a lot of the stuff that I know, like myself, just some of the things I've shared, it's not so much, I tell people all the time, it's not that I'm trying to reinvent the wheel or that I'm splitting atoms, you know, for the first time. I'm bringing to light stuff that is getting lost through time, because many of these practitioners are taking these secrets to the grave. And, you know, if you're going to keep a tradition alive, you got to share it, and, you know, with someone, or else it's just going to get lost. And it's a shame to let a lot of that tradition just, you know, go to the wayside.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you say that. There's a lot of that's actually happening in a lot of different traditions right now. And so to have somebody like you who is of the actual lineage of the bloodline, who has this kind of magic in their history and family tree for so long, to come forth and actually share this kind of knowledge and offer the service that.
And I think too, if I had to find a common denominator for really what has, you know, been a talent throughout my bloodline, is always been able to communicate with the dead, the spirits. They've always reached out to us. They've always, you know, you either can hear them, see them, feel them. It's most of the people, I would say, in my bloodline were more spiritualist and more like mediums. And then we have people that do divination. But then as it got towards me, I resonated more to a darker side of it, of the practice. So just kind of what, and no matter which way I would go, I tried different styles or different pathways. It always brought me back to where I belong.
Yeah, that's exactly. If you follow your instinct and follow where you're being pulled, you know, you will never go wrong, is what I say. And people sometimes, you know, like you said, I go into the darker stuff. That's not a bad thing. You know, every kind of sorcerer is needed. Essentially, every kind of path is needed. And it's not wrong to be drawn to darker sides of things.
Right.
People, they have that connotation a lot. When you say darker sides, they think evil or bad, and it's not necessarily it. It's dealing with a more serious aspect of magic, or subjects such as death, that people tend to stay away from or consider.
Yeah. It's, like I said, it's definitely not for every single practitioner, but you know, with me, I've always felt at home with it. I feel very comfortable around it. So,
and that's what's the important thing about finding is finding that, you know, when you're doing your particular brand of magic, that you do feel at home.
Oh yeah, well, especially like even in the 13th room where I'm filming right now. You know, this is like a bus stop or a train station for spiritual activity. I've had many friends that when I'm, you know, doing FaceTime or something like that, they'll see all kinds of things from, you know, Baron Samedi or Bawan Samdi pop right up and, you know, say hi right behind me. And you have to be comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with it, but it does freak out a lot of people. They're like, how can you live in that house? How can you live in that room? And I'm like, well, I built it. I designed it. I wanted it this way. For this exact reason. A conduit for that.
No, I understand completely. I was talking to somebody just the other day who had the same kind of situation in their house because of their ritual rooms, and, you know, even my ritual rooms is the same. A lot of activity if you're doing a lot of magic. So especially the 13th room. I mean, that's fantastic.
It's definitely been something I've wanted to do for a long time, and like I said, I was really surprised that my wife actually let me do it, but she's been a great supporter.
We can alter reality and change the world, but, you know, changing your wife's opinion sometimes can be rather
that's the
real tough. Well, my friend, I want to thank you so much again for coming on today and for, again, being part of the house. Truly honored with your presence.
Oh, it was an honor to be here, and like I said, this was fun and an exclusive moment for me, because I can tell you I wouldn't have done this for anyone else in the world but for you. It's truly an honor.
I'm honored. Thank you. Well, you can book Guy anytime. Again, just once a week, but at www.fromtheashespublishing.com. He is exclusively through the house. So if you want any of his services, looking to get his assistance in these kinds of matters that we talked about today, that's where you're going to need to go find him. The link will be below the video here. So again, thank you, my friend. I want to wish you a good day.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.